We're
live.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, let's see how it's going. Speak.
It's toch als de eeuwigste. It's impossible. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, it's very nice to be back here. Mom, it's a pleasure to be back here.
We're very happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Before the summer, before the little break that we took, we were zeicha to learn 4 mamarim. And Rabbi Yankel helped me come up, put them all into one thread, into one common thread, what the theme of all the 4 mamarim were. And which is that the Rebbe, in his inimitable way, pointed out to us, amongst the things that the Rebbe pointed out to us in those 4 mamarim was that we shouldn't think of ourselves as less than good. We shouldn't think of ourselves as less than capable, as people who are on a lower level, and we're just going to have to, make do with less than what's expected of us. The Rebbe pointed out that, first of all, we are actually good and capable. But that's not the Rebbe's way. Not only that we're actually good and capable, the Rebbe takes it a step further. The Rebbe says we're uniquely capable. Not only, in other words, not only are we not less than, and not only are we lacking in some ways, so the Rebbe says we're not lacking, but more than that, we have within us unique qualities that are unique to our times that will accomplish a unique task, which is to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu. So the 4 mamarim that we learned, the first one was B'yom Hashtei Aser Yom, where the Rebbe discusses the people of our generation, right? That what's a person supposed to have? A person's supposed to have a ratzon, a desire to the Eibishter. What's his interest in life supposed to be? Everything is in his entire life is supposed to be all about the Eibishter. I wake up in the morning, what do I want? The Eibishter. I say, it's not say, I wake up with a fire for the Eibishter. What do I want? I want to find another mitzvah. I want to find another Indian in Torah that I could learn. I want to be mechadish in Torah. And the Rebbe takes it further that even these things in Yiddishkeit, I want them only for the Eibishter himself. I don't want it not for any benefit that's going to come to me. I want it for the Eibishter himself. Then the Rebbe pivots to our generation. How about us in our times where the Rebbe says we are full of ritzenis? In other words, maybe ritzenis in Kedusha, but not necessarily ritzenis like a tzaddik to the Eibishter himself. And the Rebbe says not only that, we also have many ritzenis in Elam Hazeh. But the Rebbe points out that our connection with Gashmias gives us the unique quality of being able to be active in the bottom line. Where are we active? We're active in the bottom line. We are practical people. We are people who are connected to this physical world. And the Eibishter wants to have a dirle yisbarach. The Eibishter wants his glory to be revealed where? In this physical world. So the tzaddikim, they are on a much higher level than us. But what are they able to accomplish? Since their primary veda is in holy and spiritual matters, they're not as well equipped as we are in this generation to accomplish a home for the Eibishter in the physical world. It is specifically what we might perceive to be our failure, that we are physical people very much into this physical world in this generation. That is what gives us our unique ability to reveal the glory of the Eibishter in this physical world. That was B'yom Hashtei Aser Yom. After that, we learned the mimer, Rani V'Simchi, where the Rebbe explains a similar point. The Rebbe points out that in bittul, in being batel, and being in how do we say bittul? Besides for using the word nullifying, yeah, but it's a better word. In submitting ourselves to the Eibishter, very good, thank you. In submitting ourselves to the Eibishter, there's many different levels, and there are those who can submit their heart, their love, their fear to the Eibishter. Their heart is submitted to the Eibishter. There are those who are on the lower level. And this is the madrig of Torah that discusses in the mimer. There are those who are on a lower level, and they cannot achieve that level. Their heart, their passions, they can't bring to the Eibishter. What can they bring to the Eibishter? Their actions. The Rebbe brings a muscle. We could use a muscle, for example, in our dedication to the Rebbe. There's two levels in which we can be bottled to the Rebbe. One level is in the level of action. The Rebbe says to learn Chitas Rambam. We learn Chitas Rambam. No jokes, no kidding. We do what the Rebbe says to do. The Rebbe says to go on with time, we go on with time, each one as much as he's able to, etc., etc. All the things that the Rebbe says to do, that's what we do. However, this bittul is that we are saying that I'm going to dedicate my actions to those things that the Rebbe wants me to do. A higher level of dedication to the Rebbe is where we say, I'm dedicating myself to the Rebbe. I love the Rebbe. I feel close to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is my life. I want to see pictures of the Rebbe, watch videos of the Rebbe, hear the Rebbe's voice. I want to just be close to the Rebbe. I don't have a life of my own. I feel like I'm a child to our father. I'm dedicated to the Rebbe. That's a higher level of bittul to the Rebbe. So, al derech zeh, when it comes to a bittul to the Eibishter, we can either be dedicated in our soul to the Eibishter, or we can be dedicated in our actions. Here again, we might make a mistake of thinking that in our generation, we're not capable of the lofty veda of previous generations, where they were able to dedicate their hearts to the Eibishter, never mind their minds to the Eibishter. We at most can maybe dedicate our action to the Eibishter, and you would think that that's a lesser than situation, that we are a failure in a certain sense, which brings to a feeling of feeling downfallen by ourselves. The Rebbe points out, no, the opposite is true. In this bittul of action to the Eibishter, we actually have a unique quality that is not found in the bittul of a heart of passion to the Eibishter. The bittul, submitting your action to the Eibishter, is a complete and absolute bittul. When one submits his passion to the Eibishter, see, his passion is involved. What's he bringing to the Eibishter? My love, my fear, myself, my soul. I'm bringing myself to the Eibishter. There's still a me involved somewhere over here. So if you're going to talk about levels, it's a higher level. But if you're going to talk about bittul, what's the ultimate bittul? The ultimate bittul is the bittul of action. There's nothing of me over here. There's something that I was told to do, so it's being done. There's no me over here. And in that sense, our generation, where our primary veda is in the sphere of action, we still have to do in the sphere of passion, of ava and yir as much as we can. But our primary work is in the sphere of action. We are uniquely able to be completely bottled to the Eibishter without any bit of our own ego left in the picture. And that's a unique capability of our generation, which is a requirement to be able to bring Mashiach, when the whole world will be completely and absolutely bottled to the Eibishter. The third mimer, the fourth mimer, going out of order, the fourth mimer that we learned was the mimer of Yishlach Yeshua. In the mimer of Yishlach Yeshua, we discussed again, similar to Rani V'Simchi, but the focus was different, but in the summary will sound similar, was the Aveda again of Tzaddikim, where they can do in love and fear to the Eibishter. A tzaddik can transform his heart to love and fear the Eibishter, versus the Aveda of a Beinoni who cannot transform his heart. He'll still love his cake. He'll still be interested in money. He'll still be interested in all of the pleasures of this world. But when it comes to his thought, speech, and action, the bottom line, not what's going on inside, but how does he express himself throughout his life, in his thought and in his speech and in his action, over there, the Beinoni will dedicate that to the Eibishter. And here again, the Rebbe says, or the Rebbe implies, that you would think that this is a lower level. It's a less than situation. We are not as good as previous generations. The Rebbe points out again, not only that we are okay, we're doing a good job, but we are uniquely okay. We are uniquely capable. Because in order to bring down the highest lights, that happens dafka through mitzvahs. Dafka through physical mitzvahs, through that we draw down the highest lights of the Eibishter down into this world. So in our generation, where our primary focus is mitzvahs, in this, and thought, speech, and action, not passion, not internal aveda, again, we're uniquely equipped to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu through this aveda. And the fourth mimer that we learned was Baruch HaGimel, Tavshim Mem Gimel, where the Rebbe discusses that what if in the end of the day we feel, okay, so we have this aveda to do, and we know that we could do it, but in the end of the day, many times we fail at it. How are we supposed to deal with that? And the Rebbe explains that it's Hagayim Elachayavim Tevis. I may be a chayav. Chayav as in I'm in debt. I owe something to the Eibishter, because the Eibishter gave me a job in this world, and I didn't do the job. Nevertheless, the Eibishter is Gayim Elachayavim Tevis. The Eibishter takes my efforts, even though I wasn't able to succeed. But I put in efforts. I got the job started. I did my little part as a person living in our generation with the challenges of our generation. But I showed up. I showed up to the fight. I didn't just, say give up and resign. So then when you do that, the Eibishter says, Hagayim Elachayavim Tevis, the Eibishter bestows kindness upon you to finish the job for you, but it's still your credit because you started it. You showed up. You put in the effort. And the Eibishter finishes it and makes sure that even if you can't finish the job will be done. And as Bianco helped me formulate this way of thinking about it, is that perhaps a theme of all of these mamarim is that nobody should chas v'shalom say, this is what the Rebbe is telling us, none of us should ever say that this is not for me. I can't do this. I know there's an aveda of Chassidus. I know there's the Gili of the Baal Shem Tov and the Rabbeim. I know that there's important work to be done, but I'm not capable. It's not for me. So I'll just go and do my thing, and maybe I'll have a child who will do it. Maybe I'll support other people with money who will do it. But for me, this Aveda is not for me. These four ma'amarim, the Rebbe is drilling into our head that why is it not for you? It's for people in this generation, people of action, people who are challenged. Their wills, their desires are challenging. Their passions are challenging. Their ability to reach to higher levels is challenged. Nevertheless, this exactly is what makes us uniquely capable of being bottled to the Eibishter and bringing Mashiach Tzidkenu into this world. So that was the first Ma'amarim that Baruch Hashem we were able to learn together. We'll take a break from any particular theme. We'll focus now on Elul and on Tishrei Mitzvah Hashem, and I hope Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach after Tishrei to do a few Ma'amarim on Simcha. That should be fun. Very important topic, Simcha. Yeah. It's personally I have this mimer this year that I'm trying to learn again and again. I'm not succeeding so much, but it's a mimer about Simcha, and I'm trying to learn it as many times as possible. It's a very tough one.
It doesn't cost too much.
What?
It's a pursuit of happiness.
The pursuit of So this mimer, even though we're not starting Chodesh Elul yet, but the Rebbe actually said this mimer before Chodesh Elul. The Rebbe said this mimer Erev Chodesh Elul, so it's perfect for us to start this Elul mimer before Chodesh Elul. The mimer starts with the famous saying that Ani ledodi v'dodi li, I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. This is a pasuk in Shir Hashim that Shlomo Melech says as a mashal for the Eibishter, that the Eibishter is that we, the yiddin, are to the Eibishter. It just says I am too. It doesn't specify what is. My actions are to, my passion is to. What is it? But everything. It really includes Ani, my entire self. The Ani, the entire self, is ledodis to the Eibishter, v'dodi and the Eibishter is to me. And this is Asher Tevis Elul. It's brought down in Kabbalah that this is the Asher Tevis of the month, for the month of Elul. In other words, this idea of a yid coming to the Eibishter and the Eibishter coming to a yid is the idea of Chodesh Elul. What's the explanation in this? The Alter Rebbe explains in Likutei Torah the connection between Elul and this idea, this concept of Ani ledodi v'dodi li. And he explains it as follows: Ki be'elul hu yisrusa de l'sata ani ledodi. The veda of Elul is a yisrusa de l'sata, where the yid brings himself. He makes a cheshbon nefesh. He thinks of where he's holding in his service to the Eibishter. Serusa de l'sata. Serusa de l'sata is a general concept in Chassidus. We are down here in this world. The Eibishter is, of course, here with us. But when it comes to madregas, to giluim, to likus, to godliness, to spirituality, that's le'elo. That's above. Our neshama, for example, is described as having come from above, from le'elo, to l'sata, down here into this world. However, our neshama is always connected to its place where it came from above, and it's always connected to the Eibishter. So le'ela is where our neshama comes from, the Eibishter Kivyachol. L'sata is us down here in this physical world. And a yid throughout his lifetime, l'sata is from bottom to top. Esrusa de l'sata means the bottom is the one who awakens and starts the process. Esrusa de le'ela means the one that's above is the one who starts the process, is the one who initiates and awakens the person. So throughout our life, we all fluctuate, or we have both of them together. We have a Srusa de l'sata and a Srusa de le'ela. Sometimes out of the blue comes to us a feeling, either of happiness for the fact that we're a yid, or a feeling of pain. We're not supposed to experience that. We're supposed to push that away. But sometimes it just comes into us, a feeling of bitterness about where we're holding in this world. It just comes out of the blue without any preparation. That's in the Srusa de le'ela. The Eibishter just came close to us. The Eibishter just showed us his closeness, and that triggered within us a feeling of wanting to come close to the Eibishter. Either a feeling close to the Eibishter and a joy about that, or a bitterness and a feeling that, I got to do better. I want to, and an energy to go and do better. So that's the le'ela, came from above. Most of the time, however, we're supposed to do a Srusa de l'sata. Srusa de l'sata is the veda where the yid down here sits rationally with his own faculties, without any revelation from above. He sits and he thinks with his head. What does it say in Torah? Where am I holding? What have I done? What am I supposed to do? How can I improve? What can I do? And through that, he works to bring himself closer to the Eibishter. So that's a Srusa de l'sata. So the Alter Rebbe says that Chodesh Elul is a time of a Srusa de l'sata, is a time when the yid is supposed to seek within himself and search and observe where he's holding in life and bring himself closer to the Eibishter. And that's expressed in the words, Ani ledodi, that I come to my beloved, I'm coming closer to the Eibishter from down here. Uber Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Chodesh Tishrei, hi ha'hamshacha milamayla lamata. That is the time where the Eibishter reveals himself from above to below. That is the time of the Eibishter coming close to the yiddin. What brings about this closeness of the Eibishter in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Our veda during Chodesh Elul, by the Yid bringing himself closer to the Eibishter in Chodesh Elul. Now, when it comes Chodesh Tishrei, the Eibishter reciprocates and he comes closer to us. And that's why Elul is the Rashatevis for the words Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Shagam v'dodi li, also the Aveda v'dodi li of the Eibishter, my beloved, the Eibishter is to me. Nichlal b'Rashatevis Elul is included in the word Elul. Why is it included in the word Elul? That happens in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is in Tishrei, because this awakening from below, our work of coming closer to the Eibishter from our own position in Chodesh Elul, Ani ledodi, is not only the Aveda v'Sirus L'Sato, but it is also serves Higam Hakdama LaHamshacha v'Dodi Li Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. It's also an introduction and something that brings about drawing down the light of the Eibishter that comes close to us in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This is what the Alter Rebbe explains in Likutei Torah.
Where are we?
No, 3 lines from the end of Aleph. The Tzarich Bir, the Rebbe asks, from this, that the letter is Vav Lamed, which is the Aveda of Tishrei. V'dodi li, where the Eibishter comes closer to us. Heimetevas Elul Atzma. Those letters are part of the word Elul, which is the month of Elul. The month of Elul. It's not only an introduction for what's going to come later in Tishrei, but Elul itself includes in it an aspect of v'dodi li. Elul also includes in itself an aspect of v'dodi li. And that's why, even though primarily the time of Elul is a time of us coming closer to the Eibishter, and primarily the time of Tishrei is the Eibishter coming close to us, however, there is an element of the Eibishter coming close to us in Chodesh Elul as well, and therefore Vav Lamed v'dodi li, the Eibishter is to me, is also included in the Rashi Tevis of Elul of this month, of the coming month. The Alter Rebbe continues in the mimer, Elul huzman yid gimel midas harachamim. The Alter Rebbe goes into some of the detail of what's pshat, what's going on in Chodesh Elul. Why is Elul a time of Ani ledodi, when a Yid comes closer to the Eibishter? There's 12 months in the year. What's special about Elul? What does Elul have in it that it becomes a time when we come close to the Eibishter? You can look at it technically, mechanically. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the Eibishter is going to be judging the whole world. We had 11 months where maybe we weren't doing what we were supposed to do. Comes Elul, we start thinking that, Judgment Day is coming. Maybe we should fix up our ways. But of course, that's a very cynical, a very materialistic way, self-centered way, what's to my benefit way of looking at things. It's not like that. The reason why Elul is the time of coming closer to the Eibishter is because in Elul there's a special revelation in the world of the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. That's right. So Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim is the 13 attributes of mercy from the Eibishter. When if somebody could help over here, when the Eibishter, when the Yiddin sinned one time in the desert, so Moshe Rabbeinu davened to the Eibishter, and he mentioned Chus Avis. He said, "Please, in the merit of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, don't punish the Yiddin for their sins." Anyway, which one was that? Anybody remember offhand? I'll call upon him. And then, when Hashem forgave them, when Hashem forgave the Yiddin, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, "You thought that when the Yiddin are in trouble, I should daven to you and mention this, that you should daven to me and mention the schus of the Avis. What happens if the schus of the Avis is insufficient? It runs out. We used it all up." I can imagine such a thing. Me personally, I can imagine that I could use up that vast storehouse of schusim. So what happens if it's used up and now we're left with nothing? What's going to be? So the Eibishter says, "Let me reveal to you the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim." You could appeal to something that never runs out. The Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim never run out. Al Pi Chassidus, the difference in Chassidus, it's explained that the Yidgimel, right? Why might Chus run out? It's mamish my own thoughts, so I'm not going to, take it for what it is. But Yidgimel Midas Rachmim won't. So this it says in Chassidus that Yidgimel Midas Rachmim is a revelation from higher than Hishtalshalus. Hishtalshalus is our limited world, and the limited worlds, the limited spiritual worlds that are higher than us, which include even Atzilus. Atzilus, Bri, Yitzira, Asiya Ruchnis, and Asiya Gashmis is all part of Seder Hishtalshalus, and they have limitation, they're not unlimited. They can run out. Yidgimel Midas Rachamim, as explained in Chassidus, it comes from higher than Hishtalshalus. Over there, everything is infinite. There's no limit. It doesn't have to follow a certain order. You deserve it, you get it. You earned it, you get it. You didn't earn it, you don't get it. This is a revelation from the Eivishter. It comes from above, and it's limitless. Just like the Eivishter is limitless, this is limitless. So, in Elul, we have this special revelation. During the other months of the year, we can't serve the Eivishter in the special way that we can serve him in Chodesh Elul, because we are confined to the limitations of Hishtalshalus. However, in Elul, we have an extra revelation of Yidgimel Midas Rachmim, a revelation that comes from out of this world, from the infinity of the Eivishter, and therefore we can do the special veda of ani ledodi. And Al-Rebbe explains immediately, ani ledodi. Even though we just mentioned before in Aleph that elul is the time for the yid to do his aveda, which this is a serusa d'lasata. I'm doing the work. And over here we're saying that in elul there's a special revelation from the Eibishter. So he explains it's not a problem, it's not a question. Nevertheless, the work that the yid does in Chodesh Elul of coming closer to the Eibishter, so I didn't read that right. This is a question that we're combining two things. We're saying that the Eibishter is revealing his 13 attributes of mercy, but we're saying that the Aveda is the person's Aveda, and he's going to explain it as we go along. So nevertheless, even though that during Chodesh, so this is the way to read these lines, even though Chodesh Elul Aveda has to be the Yid's Aveda, nevertheless, the Serusa L'Lasata Shala Adam, the Aveda that the person performs down here, ubefrat, especially if we're dealing with a person Kshurachik Melikus, a person who's distant from the Eibishter, this is brought about this is brought about through an awakening and a granting of strength from above. So the Yid down here is the one doing the Aveda. However, he is awakened to do the Aveda, and he's granted strength to do the Aveda from the Eibishter above. And it sounds like a play of words. The Alter Rebbe is going to get to it soon. Explain to us very well, so it should, we can understand the different departments and understand it well, that it's not a play on words.
It's an observation that Shlomo is making. He's saying, I now realize that the way I am to my beloved is the way my beloved is to me. He's making an observation. After, he's had already his Asilusa de Lasata, and he's had revelation, and he realized, right? And then he comes to the realization, what is it really? It's that the way I am to the Eibush is the way the Eibush is going to be to me.
It's a very nice pshat. That's a very nice pshat. You're including that in Elul. In other words, you're saying because there's the Gilu Yidgimel Midas Rachamim, so we see, yeah.
Because there's no, usually they stick in the English word, as I am to my beloved, as my beloved is. There is no as. It's like an axiomatic expression. He's saying, the way I am to beloved, my beloved is to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a scale.
Not a scale, but you could call it like a mirror, perhaps.
A mirror. A mirror. That's a mirror. Right.
Yeah. And you're saying, and the Veda leads the Yidgimel Midas Rachamim, and it's like it's a mirror image. So the idea of a mirror image is explained, Taka. This idea, this thought is discussed in many places in Chassidus, Taka. Kamayim hapanim ulpanim. Right? Okay. Shkech. So, Ella, if there's two components here, there's the Eibishter coming to me, there's the Yidgimel Midas Rachamim Chodesh Elul. How is it my Aveda? How is it the Yid's Aveda? So the Alter Rebbe explains, this revelation of the Yidgimel Midas Rachamim is only a strength and energy, an ability that's given to me. It's not that the revelation actually brings me to do the Aveda. It gives me the ability to do the Aveda, but it doesn't actually cause me to do it. For me to do the Aveda, then I have to do it on my own. Aveda atzma, to actually get down to it and do it, that is totally dependent on me. I must step forward and do that Aveda. The Eibishter gives me the energy to do it, and I actually have to get it done. And this is the advantage that Chodesh Elul has in it compared to Aseres Yemei Tshuva, the time of Tishrei, the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, befront Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim, and especially within Aseres Yemei Tshuva, the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Hagili Huba Eifen Shagili Ma'eder L'Sadam. During that time, the revelation actually awakens the person. It causes him to do his aveda. And at that time, the person may be doing taka his aveda, but it's like a result of a revelation from Lamayla. So it's not his aveda, it's not his work. When do we have the main maila and the main idea of the person working? Me serving the Eibishter, not me following the Eibishter, but the Yid down here, the Eibishter's child serving his father, the Eibishter. That's the time for that. Is especially that is the special time of Elul when we have the opportunity to do that. And now the Alter Rebbe brings down the famous mashal of the Alter Rebbe to explain this idea to us. That on the one hand, we're saying that Elul is the special time for the Yid to step forward and shine and do his Aveda to the Eibishter and serve the Eibishter and show his greatness in serving the Eibishter. But we're saying at the same time that the Eibishter reveals his Yid Gimel Mitzvah Rachamim, and he said that gives me the power to do it, but it doesn't actually make me do it. How can we understand this better? So, in order to explain these two ideas that we have, these two seemingly, there's tension between these two statements. That on the one hand, it is such a great revelation that we mentioned before, it's even to the people who are distant from Elikus. And over here, the Rebbe adds that are even extremely distant from Elikus. And nevertheless, even though this is such a great revelation from the Eibishter, it doesn't actually awaken the person. It only gives him the power to step forward and do his work. So for this, the Alter Rebbe continues in the mimer, that the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy during the time of Elul can be understood by thinking about the mashal of Melech Besada, a king who travels out into the field. The famous mashal of the Alter Rebbe. Of all of the things that the Alter Rebbe said, this mashal of Melech Besada is one of the most well-known ones. You shouldn't be surprised to be in any Jewish setting and hear somebody say that it says in Medish, and at the time of Elul is Melech Besada. It became, for some reason, it just became well known throughout Yiddishkeit, throughout the Jewish world, in all circles. Right. So what's preposterous? Let's just talk it through. What's the mashal of Melech Besada? That you have a king. The king's usually in a palace. He's gonna say some of these details. We'll just give the overview. The king's usually in his palace. However, sometimes the king travels. When the king travels, he finds himself outside of the palace, outside of the city, and now he's actually in the field. Okay, so that's the basic picture that we're describing over here. A melech besada, a king who's not in his palace, he's out in the field. Amongst the differences of having a king in the field versus a king in his royal chambers are these two things that we were discussing. These two ideas that the gili is there, but however the work is done by the yid. When it comes to the level of revelation, how much of the king's greatness is being revealed? So ikir hagili de melech b'yafyeh. I'm sorry, you could call it the quality, yeah. Yes. No, the ikr. He says the ikr hagilu. He says, so what does he mean with the ikr? So you could call it the greatness of the gilu, the quality of the gilu. Yeah, yesh la'ayin, exactly what the gather is. What's that? But it's the point is that it's the gilu itself. In other words, from the king's perspective, what is he revealing? We'll see the opposite side of it in a second. It will become clear. So ikr hagilu de melech b'yafyeh techzena inecha. The primary time of when you have the revelation of beholding the king in his full glory, in his full beauty, is when the king is in his royal chambers. When the king is enclothed in kingly and royal garments, and with a royal crown. Masha'enkin kshu b'sadeh. On the other hand, when he finds himself in the field, he's not in his royal chambers, he's not in his royal robes, and he's not in his crown. When I was younger, we went in Yeshivas Kayetz in Europe. We went to the Louvre, the famous art museum. The Rebbe Rashab was there, the famous art museum in Paris. Because, if you pick up the children's books in your bookshelf and you look at the pictures of the king out in the field, how do they draw the king? The king is in his crown and in his robe, and he's holding his scepter, and he's walking, and he's walking through the field. It's a fanciful depiction, but that's not the way it actually is. So over there, I saw some of the paintings, and later I was also in London in the palace over there. You could also see some paintings over there, not in Buckingham, but in the Tower of London. So you see the way the king is drawn. So sometimes the drawing is talking of a king, in royal garments. And I mean, everybody has seen those pictures. You can imagine with the crown sitting on a throne, and you get the sense that here is a person who's above and beyond everybody else. He's in a different league, and even that doesn't seem to express the greatness of the king. And then there's pictures of the king either on a hunting party. Those are the ones that I remember. The king is hunting. But whatever it is, over there the king is wearing more like, a casquette, maybe a feather. He has a feather. He has maybe some kind of insignia or something. But he's wearing more or less regular clothing of the greatest quality, etc. But it's not the clothing that, it's not malchus, it's not royalty exactly. So when do you feel the greatness of the king? You feel the greatness of the king when you see him sitting in his crown and in his robe in his royal chamber. Shenke, when he's in the field, you don't feel that so much. But if we're going to talk about the fact that something is being revealed, there is a revelation going on over here. The revelation happens primarily when he's in the field. To be when he's in his royal chambers, you cannot enter his royal chambers unless you have special permission. And who gets this permission? Only the highest level people, the yiddin, the select few. Those are the ones who can experience this revelation of the king's full glory. However, on the other hand, when he's in the field, when he's in the field, everybody may approach. Everyone may approach him.
The quality of the human in the heichal is more about the melech, and the crowd, the
Extent
is in the sada.
Is in the sada. So that it's maybe a richtige point. It's not, but it's not to the point of this mimer. It may be a richtige point, but to keep it more in line with the theme of this mimer, it might be better to express it that the how much is being revealed, how great, what level of revelation is happening over here. That's much higher when he's in his chamber. In other words, you see a much greater level of the king, of the royalty of the king, when he's in his chambers. And when he's in his field, but however, it doesn't reach far. It's only within the confines of his throne room. However, when he's in the field, it's everywhere. It's to everyone, even though it's a lower aspect, a lower level of the king.
The emotional plus of a dump. So you can say it like this: in the chamber, you don't sense the idea of boss of a dump by him. It's a whole glory. It's pomp. It's more a feeling. Out in the field, you see the humaneness in him.
Yeah.
So why is it humane? Because he's approaching everybody.
Yeah.
So you say, hey, like you're one of us.
Yeah.
You like me, right?
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea.
Yeah. And perhaps to try to connect it to the theme of the mimer, what does it make a person feel? Right? It makes a person feel closer. You touch on something that will be discussed a little bit further. And then the Alter Rebbe adds these words, and out there in the field where everyone is permitted to approach the king receives everyone. How do you touch b'sefer panim yafis? With a pleasant countenance. But I can't use that because that's ma'apanim seichkes l'kulam. He shows a smiling face to everyone. So we need two different. So a happy face and a smiling face. Okay, so sefer panim yafis is he's happy to see them. And he shows a smiling face to everybody who he sees. There, but we'll get into detail about that. But thinking about it without getting technical in the translation of things, so in the 1990s, some of us may remember over here, I was a teenager then, and they were going to rename the interborough. Anybody, we could check over here how old people are. They were going to rename the interborough, which is a highway that goes from Brooklyn to Queens. I guess they called it the interborough. So they the Jackie Robinson Parkway, after the baseball player who played in Crown Heights in Ebbets Field. The Dodgers, for the Dodgers. Yeah, and he played in Ebbets Field right here in Crown Heights on Bedford. So they named it after him. And Clinton. It's still named after him. He also played. The league, you're saying, the Dodgers started in Lefferts Park. Yeah. Okay. So.
I take the word for it.
So Clinton came. This was a big event because he was the first one who brought justice. In other words, the ideals that America. I'm not into discussing American history, especially not by Yashir. But the Rebbe says that this country is a country of tzedek v'yesher. And the Rebbe was very into the fact that America is a just country and a God-fearing country. I just saw a video clip of the Rebbe yesterday talking about how we placed on the dollar bill. Everybody knows famously, in Hashem we trust. We trust in him. Not only we believe in him, the Rebbe points out, we trust in him. Believing could be abstract. I believe, yeah, he's there. I trust. I place myself in his hands. That's how the Rebbe places it. Just like a trust, when somebody sets up a trust to fund, some cause that he's interested in. So he entrusts his money to the trust. He entrusts his money to them to use the money for what is needed. The Rebbe says, I entrust myself in the Eibishter's hands. The Rebbe pointed out this is the uniqueness amongst the unique things of this country. So, but the country is doch we're human beings, especially when it comes to not yiddin. And even though the country was always about these ideals, but he brought, Jackie Robinson was the one who brought this idea of respecting people for their tzelem elekah, that every person is made in the image of Hashem, even a goy. He brought it to the arena of sports. That a black person, a Schweizer, was allowed into one of the major leagues. He was the first one. And it's interesting that in order to commemorate this event, President Clinton drove by Eastern Parkway, where he drove by 770. Hey, we don't know these things, so we don't make things. But it's interesting when a new revelation of goodness was brought into the world, even into America. So the President of America drove right by 770. So Clinton was in his motorcade, and I was standing. Everybody was allowed. He was Melech Besada, and everybody was allowed to stand on the island over there in Eastern Parkway. So what was Clinton doing? Because there's doch nicht kein Melech. So I saw him through the window of his limousine. He says, "Hey," he was holding a stack of papers, reading, and his hand was like this. Yeah. So this is not Makabelis Kulim B'Sever Panim Yafes or Ma'ad Panim Seichis L'Kulim. There's no WhatsApp, but he was busy, I'm sure. But Al Derech, Nazem Tahant Keter Azeh, he was driving by probably 70 miles an hour. I don't know if everybody even knows that he's not even looking at his reading glasses on. That's not Makabelis Kulim B'Sever Panim Yafes. It's nicht a Melech, if you had any doubt. Yeah. So Panim Seichis is not like that. The king comes out, and the people come out to the island Eastern Parkway to receive him. He reciprocates. He shows his love and his connection to Emet. He shows his love and his connection to every person who belongs to him, to every member of his nation. And that's what the Eibishter does for us in Elul, and that's the Nimshal. So too in the Nimshal, the revelation of the Eibishter during the time of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And so too during the beginning of Tishrei, during the days of Aseres Yemei Tshuva, Shehu b'dugmas melech behichaloi, that is compared. Alter Rebbe compares that. He says this is a time when it's like the king when he's in his royal chambers. And over there, the revelation awakens the person. B'dugmas melech behichaloi, similar to a king in his royal chambers, b'levushei malchus, wearing his royal garments, b'keser malchus, wearing his crown. Shehu matal ema v'fachad. A person, even a simple person, doesn't have to do anything. All he has to do is just have his eyes open and see the king sitting there in his royal chamber, and the picture just throws on him a fear. that he's standing in the presence of greatness over here. Here's a king who is above and beyond anything. Life and death are in his hands, and that's and on a deeper level, you could say Pasha feels the greatness of the man, the greatness of the person of this king, without him working on it, because it's conducive. The atmosphere just causes it, just throws it onto him. Avol. For the person to experience this revelation, never throws in the word beikir. It's mainly after first a yid doing his work during Chodesh Elul. In order to be able to allow, through this he becomes on a higher level. He becomes a special person. He becomes amongst the select few who are allowed to enter the king's chamber. Every year, the Rosh Hashanah Kippur could come close to the Aversion, no matter where he is. However, be'ikir, the way it's supposed to be, if we're going to do our job and the way the system is set up, in order for us to enter the closeness of the Aversion during the time of Rosh Hashanah Kippur, so we have to first go and do our veda now in this coming month of Elul. So we have over here two aspects that he pointed out. First of all, who is awakening the person? The king is awakening the person. It's not the person's veda. He walks into the royal, into the throne room, and he's immediately filled with a proper feeling of fear before the king. And who can? So this is a very great revelation. Who can experience it? Only somebody who's on a very high level, who's allowed to enter the king's chambers. However, Vagili de Elul, the revelation of the month of Elul, this is similar to when a king is traveling out in the field. Over there, when the king is in the field, this revelation, the fact that the king is in the field, doesn't awaken the person. It only gives him the ability to do the veda. However, this power, this strength that's given to a person is given to every single person, not only to those who are in a special condition. Similar to a king who's in the field, that when the king finds himself in the field, he doesn't cause people to fear him so much. So you have over here like this. When the king is in the field, for example, if we were going to give the thing, if I say I saw President Clinton in person, face to face, were you next to him? 3 feet away from him. And then I say where he was flying by as in his car on Eastern Parkway. We'll say, okay, fine, Mela. I'm not taking a plane from one city to the next, using my vacation day to go and experience this thing. What if somebody says, I saw the president, where did you see him? In the White House. That's already something else. And another person says, where did you see him? I saw him in a private dinner. And never mind, the person says, I saw the president, I met the president in the Oval Office. In the Oval Office, that's already something that people have a chukka to see the president of the United States of America in the Oval Office. That's a Shem Epis. And I'll take a flight, and I'll take a vacation, I'll take a day off of work. Many of the people that you see in the pictures, you see them in pictures next to the president. What you don't know is that they gave $100,000 donation for the upcoming election, to the party, to the this, to the that, for the photo op, so that they can hang it up. When somebody walks into their office, they see the pictures and say, I'm dealing over here with somebody who's in the big leagues. But the people should pay hundreds of thousands. In the Oval Office is millions. To be at a dinner, you have to pay in the high tens of thousands. To get to the Oval Office, you have to contribute probably in the millions. Yeah, you also have to give me a story that goes along with it, though. When the person asks me, what were you doing there? So,
Call my guy.
Cool. You're a guy. You have a guy. So when the king is in his chambers, everybody feels a desire to go and experience this sight, to see the king there. When he's out in the field, you don't experience that desire. The king is out. It's not as special. But can you see him there? You bet. Well, you just walk out and see him. He's giving you the ability to come closer to him. All you have to do is step outside, go and see him. I used to live then on Eastern Parkway. All I had to do is walk out of my house and walk a few feet. I'm in the presence of the President of the United States. I could do it. That's the idea of Melech Besada. So it has to be my work, my decision to come out. I don't feel that attractive, the gravity the attracting power of the king to say, come and see me. I have to initiate it from on my own. And especially those who find themselves in the field. We said that. Furthermore, I just finished explaining ahead of what the Rebbe was saying, that when the king is in this situation, he doesn't even awaken a desire within a person to see the king. That's why the Rebbe uses the word shereitze. The king is available to anybody who wants to see him. This that the people go out to see the king is because of their own will, their own desire that they worked up within them. The feeling that they want to go and see the king. However, what makes this all possible? That's by the king's action. He went out to the field. Then everybody has the permission and the ability. And that then explains to us this idea of Chedesh Elul. Chedesh Elul is the time when I have to do the work. However, it's the time of a great revelation. Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. And we said that one doesn't contradict. There's no tension between these two statements of saying it's the Yid's work and saying that it's the Eibishter's revelation of his Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. Because with the mashal of Melech Masada, we can understand it very well. The king goes out to the field. So there's an activity, there's an action done by the king. However, the fact that the king is in the field doesn't awaken within the commoners living out there in the distant, the peasants living out there in the villages. It doesn't awaken within them any desire to see the king. Aside for the fact that they're living out in the field, so they're lowly people. Aside for the fact that the king, you don't see the king in his full glory, so it's not such a big deal. Okay, you saw him, I could see him also. So I have to come. The Yid has to come and do his Aveda. So we have these two components. The Aveda belongs to the Yid. What gives the Yid the ability to do the Aveda is the fact that the king is in the field. If he was in his palace, I couldn't do it even if I was trying to. And that's the idea of Elul.
Then it's not the king, it was a Susan Aveda. It's not the king coming onto the field. And it's not the person it doesn't awaken in us that Susan the Sato?
No.
No,
and that's why you shouldn't us.
Yes. But not because of an aslusa delayla.
Right, that's what. So don't use the word aslusa delayla. The Deibster did something, but the term aslusa delayla means that he awakened me. Don't use that. That doesn't belong here.
That's
totally coming from us.
And what drove that?
What drove that? Let's see the rest of the mimer. There's what to discuss about that. It's a good question. Okay. I forgot to mention before we got started, this mimer, the Rebbe touches on the depth, on the true essence of a Yid, unbelievable vart that hopefully we'll see before Tishrei. No, it's going to take 2 weeks, maybe 3. Thank